Okay. So we're calling to order the Board of Adjustment for August 25th, 2021. Roll call.
Mr. Hrabowski,
Here.
Ms. Turner,
Present.
Mr. Burris,
Here.
Ms. Rich,
Here.
Mr. Davis is in the audience.
Okay, so we're going to go to application. Oh, I'm sorry, the quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of speakers.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the Board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the Board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The Board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the Board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the Board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the Board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest this evening? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak, if you could please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. So sworn.
Okay, so we go to item number 3, application 21-93, variance to decrease the side setbacks and allow an increase in length for a dock. And the city has a presentation for us.
And before the city begins, I believe the 5 members is a full board, yes? So if Mr. Davis wants to come sit at the dais and participate as part of the board, he's welcome to do so.
Right, he has opted out.
Okay.
Okay. The property is located off of Bayshore Drive. It's outlined in black here on the screen. It's located on the Kramer Bayou. This property, as well as all surrounding properties, are located within the R100 single-family residential zoning district. The applicants are proposing to construct a new dock with a boat lift as well as jet ski lifts on their property. And they're here today requesting variance approval to exceed the maximum length allowed by the Land Development Code. The Land Development Code states that the length of a private dock cannot extend from the mean high water line further than half the width of the property at the waterfront. This property has approximately 51 feet of water frontage. This would be allowed to have a 25.5-foot total dock length. They are proposing a total length of 45 feet. To provide just a little bit of clarity, you may have noticed in the application, they were originally asking for both a length as well as a width variance. However, following the TRC review, they did revise their site plan to eliminate the need for the width variance. So they're only requesting the length. And that is a site plan that you guys were provided, as well as the staff report was prepared off of that. This property is a legally non-conforming lot of record, meaning that it does not meet the minimum lot standards that are established for the zoning district in which it is located. This property, again, is in the R100 zoning district. The minimum lot width is 75 feet, and this property only has 51 feet of frontage on the waterfront. The dock allowances in the Land Development Code are based on the width of water frontage that you have. So as stated, the dock length is limited to half of the width of the property. And again, that's measured from the mean high water line. And then as far as the dock width and location, it states that docks must be located within the center 1/3 of the property. For this particular property, you're required a minimum of 17 feet from either side of the dock to the adjacent property lines. And again, with the revised site plan, they are meeting that requirement. The Land Development Code also provides provisions for dock dimensional standards to be waived administratively if statements of no objection are signed by affected adjacent property owners. Those statements of no objection were not provided, which is why the applicants are here today requesting variance approval. This is a look at the provided site plan. There's a lot going on the screen, so I'm going to try my best to walk you through it. The applicants, again, are proposing a new dock. It will have a 4-foot wide catwalk with a boat lift at the end and jet ski lifts behind the boat lift. These orange lines on either side, do my best, are the extended property lines. And then again, the length of a dock is measured from the mean high water line. This is that light blue line here. So this is where you start your measurement. For this particular property, it's approximately 8 feet from the top of bank. Again, they would be permitted about 25 feet in length for a dock, and they are proposing 45 feet. The site plan and survey that they provided does show the adjacent docks to the north and the south, which are the green structures on either side of the drawing, showing that although they're exceeding the length that they're allowed for this particular property, they are consistent and similar with what is surrounding them. This is just zooming out, looking at an aerial photograph, again showing the comparison to the current docks that are to the north and the south. Again, we stated that this property is a legally non-conforming lot of record. So we took a look at some of the surrounding context. So we looked at 500 feet to the north and south along Bayshore Drive for the waterfront properties. The lot widths range between 62 feet and 204 feet. There's an average lot width of 90 feet. And again, the minimum lot width for R100 is 75 feet, and this property has approximately 51 feet of frontage for comparison. Here are your review criteria, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So do we have any questions for the city?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
On your preliminary staff recommendation to approve, page 1, I recommend approval of the dock length variance request. When you go to the site plan, arch canvas roof covering, non-permanent, see neighbors. Can you explain that part of it? About the canopy, do they need a permit for that? Is it part of the whole thing?
I think they're just stating that they are going to have a covering on the boat lift, and they're just providing a picture showing what type of covering. That is not necessarily anything to look at for the land development code purposes. We do look at that roof structure in terms of the width of the dock, and on the site plan, it does show that that dock does not exceed that 17 feet of width, even with the roof structure.
Does it matter if it's a canvas or a permanent roof?
Not from a land
Canopy?
development code perspective. And that would all be reviewed through the building permit side.
That's fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rich, do you have any questions? And how much? Okay.
Mr. Burris addressed one of my questions.
Okay, so now we go to the applicant. If you have anything that you would like to present, you can come to the podium, state your name, address, and we'd be happy to hear whatever you have to say.
My name's Jeremy. Really, that's pretty much it. I'm just looking for that length variance so I get the proper depth needed to actually have a usable water frontage lot. So,
And hang on one second then. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
And I don't know if this is maybe, can ask city staff or attorney. We've been presented also with the letter from the Christmases and Mr. Branch and Miss Domenech. I hope I didn't butcher her name. Did I get it? Yay. And in the letter, it's referencing an 11-foot additional feet, but in the application here, we have a 20-foot.
the 11 was the initial when we were trying to go wider as well with the jet skis. After talking with my dock builder, planning and zoning, we kind of worked out where we didn't have to go wider and we could just go out to the same length as the neighboring docks and still get the ability to put the jet skis in there without encroaching on the sides.
Okay, all right, so then maybe if I can ask you for clarifications, we can kind of verbalize that. So the original application that you had put forth, which asked for the dock width as well as the length being going into the water, your original was, if you see this diagram here, you have coming from your house, coming from land, first you hit the jet ski floating dock, and then you hit your boat lift. Was your original flipped? So first you would have the boat, and then you would have the jet skis? Was that your original plan?
The original was actually where the 20-foot is, it was going to be 11-foot. and that would bring the lift further to the shore, and then I was gonna have single lifts for the jet ski on the other side of the 4-foot catwalk. So in order to
Oh, I
remove
see. Thank you for
that-
clarifying.
that
It would
side
be on
variance.
the, I don't want to say north, south, east, west, because I'm not sure. It would be closer to the property
To the right,
to the right.
correct.
So they would be side by side as opposed to tandem.
Correct.
Okay.
But going out the length of the adjacent docks allows me to fit everything.
Okay, so
in
instead
there.
of it being side by side, now we're
it's-
talking tandem.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Sometimes a whiteboard would help me.
Understood. Any more questions of the applicant? Seeing none, then we will go to the public. If you would like to speak, happy to hear what you have to say. Just state your name and address for the record.
You want me up here?
Yes, please.
My name is Jerry Christmas. I reside at 640 Bay Shore Drive, and things have changed again. He keeps playing a game of bait and switch, and I had no idea that he had given up the desire to move outward, and so my letter addresses the outward movement more than anything. But we sat back there, and maybe we don't need to say anything, but I'm just really uncomfortable with where this leaves us. Let me read my letter, please, and then
Okay.
I'll try to address why I still feel the need to say something. I wrote this back on 8/22, to whom it may concern. My wife Teresa and I have lived at 640 Bay Shore Drive for 21 years. The small property adjacent to us has been empty all this time. I have always kept the grass mowed. Our introduction to Jeremy, the new owner, occurred when Jeremy knocked on our door, requesting my wife to sign a variance request for the dock he wanted to build on the water property he had just purchased. He told my wife that our neighbor John had already signed. Teresa declined to sign at that time, and later that day we discovered that neither John nor Saida had even seen the request. Jeremy's response to this revelation was that he didn't remember saying that about John. On a later attempt, he specified a variance request for an additional 11 feet extension into the water, but admitted that the printed drawings showed a 4-foot variance laterally on both sides of the planned dock. Again, when confronted on the apparent omission, he told my wife, "Oh, I thought I told you that." We have had several meetings with John and Saida to discuss Jeremy's requests. We have agreed all along that we are willing to accede to 11 feet out, but are uncomfortable acceding to any lateral expansion due to the closeness of our docks and impeding visibility and maneuverability. Jeremy's claim to a non-conforming hardship includes needing to build out 11 additional feet. We already acquiesced to length, and the need to spread sideways due to the narrowness of the property he chose to purchase. A comparison of dock width to water frontage demonstrates 16% for us, 40% for John and Saida, and 47% for Jeremy. That ratio was based on his request at the time, which would have added up to 24 feet wide for divided by a 51-foot water frontage of his property. The owner of the narrowest property is asking for dock width of 50% of his frontage. Of course, this no longer applies unless he has other tricks up his sleeve. Teresa and I would have been looking at a 7-foot extension protruding onto our side of Jeremy's modified dock, interfering with ability to enjoy our view and allow for adequate room for maneuvering our boat onto the lift. Both neighbors are confused by Jeremy's claim to a hardship variance. From the beginning, both households have agreed to the 11-foot extension out into the deeper water. In early June, we invited Jeremy to our house to discuss his request. At that time, he only requested to extend out 4 feet toward our property, not the current 7 feet. Again, that's changed. We told him he could have the extended length, but not the 4 feet he planned to use to build jet skis. He stated that he was okay with that decision because he could park his jet skis on the other side of his dock away from us in front of his boat lift on a floating dock. We told him we would sign, but requested that he give us an updated drawing survey, including a signature section on the same page as the schematic. We next heard that he had applied for a hardship variance. Both neighbors are requesting that what the hardship is, since we both agreed to give him the extra length he said he needed. We are frustrated and disappointed that Jeremy seems to be an unreliable informant and avoids cooperating with his new neighbors. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Jerry Christmas, Teresa Christmas, John Branch, and Saida Dominic. And I would suggest to you that the idea is not undone by the fact that he's decided to give up his lateral variance. We sat on our back porch, and I imagine what his dock, especially with the lateral expansion, would have looked like, and I feel very disappointed that I have to give up that part of my view. And my argument to you right now, even though the lateral component is gone, with that additional length out that up to this point he's never even mentioned. This is where it's amazing the character of this individual, because he could have discussed this with us. And like I say, the attempts he did make to get our signatures, we didn't decline the length. We were happy to give him the extra, well, maybe not happy, but we agreed to give him the 11 feet. Now we show up tonight ready to make our point and find out that he's bait and switched again, and without any communication to us, without any response to our responses to him. I think we've given him a fair shot. And when you say that the reason he had to call this hardship variance is because the neighbors refused to sign, that's another lie. We didn't refuse to sign. We just refused to give him the lateral movement. And he said both to me that he could put a floating dock that would take care of his jet skis, so that's not a problem. I think the 11 feet probably covers any deep water deep enough to get your boat out of the water. And I don't know where he comes up with the idea that he can move out a lot farther. He chose to buy a property that only has a 51-foot frontage. If he wanted to build that far, he could have bought, ours is 151, we could go out 75 feet. We're not going out that far. And it just seems extremely unfair that hasn't given us a chance to respond to these new plans that he's making, and he accuses us of not cooperating with him when we've cooperated with him all along. It's been him all along that's bait and switched and not telling the truth, and it's extremely frustrating. So I wanted to go ahead and make that point tonight. We still are going to have an obstruction with a dock that goes out that far. We're going to that's going to take away a lot of our view, not to mention I haven't seen his new plans. So where's the dock going to be in that whole, what'd you say, whatever the distance, 47 feet out, or almost the length of this property?
I believe, actually, if we could ask, I think it's the next slide up, it's the aerial view that you have the red dotted line that I believe would illustrate Mr. Christmas's.
Just for clarification, this is approximately to show generally, so it's obviously not completely to scale, but this is generally to show the comparisons.
And one more thing, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I had never heard the criteria that when you buy a bowling alley piece of property like that you're allowed to step up with everybody else has the larger frontage and get to go out just as far as they do. Like, is that a right to passage or something? I don't understand what entitles somebody to just say that they want the longer dock because they want the longer dock.
And that's where I believe, I don't want to step on the city staff's toe here, talking about the requirements that have to be met by any applicant that comes before our board. There is a set of criteria, which is 2 or 3 slides further, okay, which answers these questions, be it a dock, a shed, a building a pool, whatever the situation may be. And I don't want to steal your thunder.
Sure. Well, as far as a variance review, the board is bound by this set of criteria. If they feel that all of the criteria are met based off of what they're asking and what is proposed, that's when they can approve a request. If they believe that one or more of those criteria are not met, that's when they deny an application. So this is what their decision is bound on.
I'm sorry. What's the criteria for going out further?
These 5 criteria, they apply to all variance requests, whether it's a dock length, whether it's a side setback, whether it's a pool, something like that. It's the same 5 criteria that you have to look at the board has to consider.
Do we have any questions of this gentleman?
This is, what I
No.
got from what I read was it has to be a non-conforming hardship. I don't know what that means, but my understanding was if the water is shallow there, then yeah, you probably have a right to go, or you can ask for a right to go out a little bit further to get your boat, be able to get your boat on your lift. I don't know what's non-conforming about his property.
Sure. I'll provide some a little bit of clarity. So this property, it's considered, the term is legal non-conforming lot of record. So that means this property was platted back, I believe I can go to my staff report, like in the 20s. So it was a legal lot at that time. It hasn't changed over time. It's a buildable piece of property. Since this was platted, certain code provisions have changed, different regulations go into place, and the current zoning basically requires for this zoning district a larger piece of property. So if someone came in today to plat properties in the R100 district, they would have to meet those minimum standards. This property does not meet those standards. Because it was platted prior, that's why it's illegal non-conforming. So that's just a consideration when looking at these criteria. The term like hardship, that's pulled from the criteria language. A physical hardship about the property. What about this property is preventing you from meeting the requirements of the Land Development Code? So that's where those two come into play. Does that help a little bit?
No, I don't understand.
Okay.
I appreciate you trying to answer my question.
So is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Branch. My address is 644 Bayshore Drive. I'm speaking for Saida and I. As was stated, this has been an ongoing process. We're not really sure why. What I didn't hear was defined as the hardship part. That's the part I don't understand. We've heard what's not conforming, but what is actually the hardship when we've been told that this is what he wants, and we've said we would agree all along. And literally right now, we just found out about the additional footage, and we've been looking on your website and saw what was filed. We went on the city, and we were reading, that letter was written based on what was in the city, and what he was requesting then. And literally right now, we just found out that he's trying to get another 20 feet, not 11 feet. So it's like we still haven't had the opportunity to basically what we've been trying to do all along, which is accommodate the situation. We weren't trying to battle our neighbors, but it started with, oops, it would go down the chain. It's just been ongoing for months, and it has not been ongoing because we have refused to cooperate, or we would not give him what he was asking for. We have yet to get what we were asking for, which was just literally a plan of what you're doing, like with the actual drawings, with the variance that you're asking for being denoted with a set, which what the city actually, we came to the city and they told us these are the things he needs to give you with a survey so you can compare the measurements and how they're supposed to be. Just a simple thing and denoting it. Then he would tell us that and then come back and, oh, I didn't realize no, what is it? What was his wording was? I thought I told you that when he tried to slip in 4 feet each direction towards our property, never having mentioned that. So this has been ongoing. And then now we walk in and it's 10 more feet. And all we said was, give us a drawing what you're doing. We'll give you the 11 feet. It's like we've done nothing to disagree with him. He just has not conformed to just actually working with his neighbors. And now I don't even know when this happened because it's not what was online. So we actually came in not prepared even to address this situation, if we would. You know what I mean? We don't know if we would or we wouldn't address this because we haven't had reasonable time to even look at it. Because as of this weekend, what was online is not this 20 feet. So I don't know when that changed, but we were going on your site and what we were sent, and he was still asking for the width. It has been misleading the entire time, and then now it's a hardship variance, and I'm not sure what makes it that because he hasn't had to fight us. And at this point, it's kind of like, well, I don't really know why it's a hardship for him to need to go out that far either. You know, why is that a hardship? Because my boat is at the same length, my first boat is at the same length as what his first asking of 11 feet is. It's at the same, I pull my boat in. Why does he need another 10 feet? We don't see that. So the fact that we haven't been able to even be prepared for that, nor we're told that, and the fact that it's going to a hardship, and there was no reason for a hardship. All he had to do was give us plans and actually like give us the proper stuff, and we would have signed it, and he would have been able to come and apply for a variance with both of his neighbors' signature on it, and we don't understand. It's been all kinds of different tricks, you know, like give you the drawing and the paper separate. We came to the city with the paper, and the city's like, don't sign that. He's basically asking you to sign carte blanche so he can do whatever he wants because it's not attached to anything. Like this has been one step at a time, only to find out right now that it's been changed again literally since we got the information to try to address it. So that's really all I have to say. I don't really know what else to say except for...
Do we have any questions of
now
this
what I
gentleman,
do.
Mr. Branch? Yes.
Yeah, just for
please.
clarification, he's allowed 25 feet.
Right.
Your understanding is 11 feet on top of that, correct?
Exactly.
Now he has 20 feet. He's asking for a 20-foot variance.
He's asking for an
That's your
additional 10
objection.
feet. Yeah, well, the fact that we didn't even know that that was the case to decide whether we object or not until just now. All of us just found out about this while we were sitting here. And we've been looking online and we've got all the information from the city. And this literally just now, that extra 10 feet came in, and as of what's online, it's still asking for the 11 and then a 7-foot variance, you know, laterally towards the neighbors. And we're still trying to figure out what the hardship is. There's no hardship as to why he would need to go that additional 10 feet.
Ms. Rich, you have a question.
Well, just, I understand your questioning about the hardship. And, you know, all of us as volunteers on this board, it takes a while for us to understand all of this and the criteria and everything. And as I've come to view it, it's kind of like I'm just trying to help articulate it for all of us. It's almost like it's the property's hardship, how it's there. It's not this individual necessarily's hardship or related to that criteria about if it's true that if what he's bringing today, he had approached you all and asked you to sign that you all were in agreement of it, then it would not even ever have come up to us. But the hardship language, it's, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but it's more of related to the property codes type of thing and not like the way we would talk about hardship in a different scenario. And I know it's, you know, we're learning this language too as we, you know, none of us, we did not write this, you know, the codes, and our job is to base really on this criteria, and the staff recommendations and report to us help, and we're so appreciative of you all being here and sharing your concerns.
Well, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
There is one other concern aside from that he could get his boat on without the other 10 feet, and that we just found out about this, is if you look also from a realistic point of view on that, from where the docks go out, all right, everybody's kind of at an angle because we're on a curve like this. And the further he goes out, the closer he is to the docks. It kind of is the same effect. See how the docks are actually kind of getting closer as they get further out. The further he goes out, the closer he gets to our docks. It's the same. We have the same problem. The space is being encroached on, and there's really not a reason for it because he could get his boat on with the additional 11 feet, which we were going to approve all along.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Ms. Rich said. Thank you, Mr. Branch and Mr. Christmas, for coming up and addressing these things. And I do agree that it can be confusing. This isn't language that we use in our normal business lives or personal lives. So I would like to request to help address and allay these concerns that, you know, the neighbors rightfully have about this. What the heck are we talking about? We're talking about a non-conforming lot of record. Those aren't words that that fall off of our tongue easily. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may suggest, may we ask for the guidance, as we have done on many of our applications, to go through those 1 through 5 with the city staff?
Yes.
Reading what number 1 is this, and this is the findings of it, et cetera.
Right. Ally, you
So-
good with that?
Quick tutorial,
Just want me to
if
read
you
from the
will.
staff report?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
ma'am.
Okay. All right, so number 1, I'll read the criteria as well. Criteria is the need for the requested variance arises out of the physical surroundings, shape, topographical conditions, or other physical or environmental conditions that are unique to the specific property involved and which do not apply generally to property located in the same zoning district. Staff's provisional findings of fact were the Land Development Code limits a private dock's length based on the amount of water frontage the property has. This property is legally nonconforming and only has 51 feet of frontage, which is less than the required in the R100 zoning district. Due to the water depth at this location, it warrants the dock to extend further than permitted. Although the length of the dock will exceed what is permitted for this particular property, it is consistent with other similar docks in the immediate area. The unique physical configuration of this lot and the water depth at this location results in the need for the variance.
And if I'm sorry, if I may interrupt here, maybe this is the educator coming out in me. So putting that of what our lovely staff said in English is talking about the need for the variance. It came out of the way that this land is. The applicant didn't plat this back in 1927. It was platted in 1925, 26, 27, nearly 100 years ago, saying that this is the lot. As things have changed, now we have certain criteria that says, you know, like if you were to build a shed or a fence or a pool, you have certain setbacks. So it's saying he doesn't have any control over the size of that lot, nor do you have the size over the control of your lot. That's one of those situations in the environmental conditions. We don't have any control over the depth of the water in front of us. So that's, if you will, my elementary explanation of it.
Okay.
Please
All right.
continue.
Criteria number 2, the conditions or special circumstances peculiar to the property have not been self-created or have resulted from an action by the applicant or with prior knowledge of the approval of the applicant. Staff's provisional findings of fact were the 51-foot wide subject property was originally platted in 1924 as part of the Sunset Hills subdivision prior to the current zoning regulations. The conditions peculiar to the property have not been self-created, and the need for the variance is due to the property being 24 feet narrower than required under the current zoning regulations. Further, the extended dock allows the additional water depth necessary for the docking facility. Want me to keep going?
Please.
Okay. Criteria 3. Literal enforcement of the requirements of the City of Tarpon Springs Comprehensive Land Development Code would have the effect of denying the applicant of reasonable use of the property or legally conforming buildings or other structures, and the requested variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the property. Staff's provisional findings of fact. The nonconforming property is 24 feet narrower than required under the current zoning regulations for the R100 zoning district. Dock length is limited based on the width of the property's waterfront. The proposed additional dock length is directly in response to the nonconforming lot width and the water depth at this location. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to construct a usable dock that is consistent with what is allowed elsewhere in the district for waterfront properties. Criteria 4. Granting the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. No variance will be granted that extends to the applicant a use of property that is not commonly enjoyed by other persons in similar circumstances. Staff's provisional findings of fact. Granting of the dock length variance will allow for the construction of a docking facility for the waterfront property on a nonconforming lot. Further, this property is narrower than all other waterfront lots within 500 feet and is also below the average width of 90 feet. These other lots would all be permitted docks that are the same or exceed what is proposed by the applicant. The additional dock length will not confer any special uses or privileges to the applicant that are not commonly enjoyed by other property owners in similar circumstances. Criteria 5. Granting the variance will not substantially diminish property values in the surrounding area, substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by approval of the variance, alter the essential character of the neighborhood, or create a nuisance. Staff's provisional findings of fact, approval of the additional dock length will not substantially diminish property values in the surrounding area nor alter the essential character of the waterfront neighborhood. The proposed dock, although longer than permitted for the width of this property, is similar to other docks within the immediate area. And that's it.
So if we have no further public comment, then we're going to close the public comment portion. I'm going to ask the attorney, does the applicant have a rebuttal, or do we just move on?
No, you should offer the applicant a rebuttal and a closing statement if he wishes to have one.
Sir, if you would like to rebut any of the information that was given by the public, you're free to do so.
Not really a rebuttal, but I didn't mean to cause any confusion. I know we've been working on this for a while, trying to, I think I presented you 4 or 5 different designs. The last one that I presented, you said do away with the jet ski lift. I agreed with. This process was already in the works because I never got a text back on when to drop that off, so it was already in the works. When we got talking with them to eliminate that width so that it didn't interfere, because I know you didn't want that width interference. That's what we're trying to do is, so we are going out a little further so I can still keep my other jet skis there. That way we're not encroaching on your width, but. The additional length is needed because the jet skis. So, that's it.
Okay.
I never meant any confusion, so.
And Chairman, if I may, before the
Yes.
applicant goes from the podium, if I may ask, because I understand the process of doing things like this, particularly when you have a tricky lot situation being narrower than normal, because again, none of us were around 100 years ago to plat these things. Yeah. What was your process of, like you were saying, you originally were thinking the side-by-side, then you've had changes, it sounds like, in the statements that Mr. Christmas and Mr. Branch were stating. Your plans have been changing, and that seems to be part of the frustration that your neighbors are facing. We're here to look at the variance and the application and all of this legalese, but my heart also wants to make sure that we have good neighbors.
Yes.
So,
I think we all want that, so.
Understanding these changes, so maybe if there is an explanation of these changes, and then in addition to that, if we can clarify with the city staff, and we have the city attorney here, because this is a quasi-judicial procedure. So if we did, just to let you know, the next step from here, say if we were to vote no, this doesn't go to another board or commissioners or anything like that. That goes straight to the courts. So that's why we do take these things, quite seriously. And whatever the applicant is granted or not granted, that's then worked with the planning department. The attorney has all of this documented, saying it was agreed that he has 11 feet or 20 feet or however many feet. It is that just that. So the concern of the bait and switch type of thing, there, again, we have legal backing saying that if we grant him a variance for 11 feet, 10 feet, whatever the heck it might be, and he turns around and says, "No, I changed my mind for that plan," I would highly suggest you do not do that, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and this is.
You see what I'm saying?
I'd rather have it documented as it is. That way there is no confusion, because the initial process, as she said, as Mr. Christmas said, what I went over there initially with was the dock that the original owner of the lot, the prior owner of the lot, had done. And that was the initial. And
so was
didn't
that
agree
dock,
with that,
like
and
there was a dock there and it was torn
a
down?
No, it was the original designs for the dock.
Okay.
From the previous owner of the lot. No, previous designs.
No, a previous design from the previous owner.
Of the lot before we bought. No. The original one I brought to them, I didn't bring it to, I might have given it to you, but.
No, I think we just discussed it.
Yeah, it was all discussions. It's been months in discussions trying to figure out what they would allow us to do, basically.
And perhaps maybe what we could do to allay everyone's concerns, we could ask the city attorney or city staff to review what happens from this point forward? Say if we were to grant, kind of the two paths this could take. We could vote yes to grant him the 20-foot variance to go out. What then the applicant has to do from today to launching his boat on that dock. And then part two, if we vote no, then what happens?
Okay, you want to take that, Mally?
Yep, I can do that. So if the variance is granted, it is bound to what this plan is shown. This is, or was shown. That is the evidence for the case. So that allows for the 20-foot encroachment. The next step from here is to get a building permit. That building permit is not only reviewed by Tarpon Springs, it also is reviewed by Pinellas County Water and Navigation. There's a much longer name to that. They reviewed as well. They are the ones, really the owners of the waterways. So not only does the city review it in the permit stage, the county reviews it as well. If it complies with what the variance says, then, and it complies with all the building code requirements, both county and city, then the permit would be issued and they can construct the dock as it's shown on these plans. If the variance were to be denied, the applicant's options are, one, to propose a dock that complies with what the land development code allows and go through the permit process that way. The other option is to appeal the decision, and as Jackie said, that would go to the courts to appeal it, does not go to a different board locally, or, well, in Tarpon Springs. And then the third option is if the plans were to revise to be a lesser variance or different, substantially different. So if they came in and said, we can do 15 feet, or if it's something different, they could go through this process again. So those are your options.
Mr. Boris.
Yes, let me ask you a question.
Sir.
If the lot was a conforming lot, you have been able to put the 25 feet plus the 20, 45 feet, correct?
May have to defer
Total.
to Ally on that, but yes, I think it's, because a conforming lot, the minimum width is 75, right?
75,
So-
so 37
have
and
been-
a half.
Okay.
And that's
that-
measured again from the mean high water line.
Okay, so 75 feet is a conforming lot on the width, correct? If the lot that you have was 75 feet, you were able to put the 45-foot dock, it wouldn't have encroached in any way on where the neighbors are at because you have been wider,
Correct.
okay?
And I'm
Now
still
that the
not
lot is
encroaching.
narrower, and you're asking for the same 45 feet, well, something doesn't add up here. They're saying 11, you're saying 20. Do you agree to do the 11 and continue from here since the lot is smaller and it doesn't encroach on them because of the width being narrower?
I would like to keep the 20 just so that allows me to put my jet skis in. And that's why I got rid of I was trying to keep it minimal variance all around, which is why I wanted to do the skis on one side, which gave
I
which
understand.
is why I need the variance on the width. So
I-
in order to
I-
subdue that, it's, yeah.
I understand that, but you have to see the point that if it was 75 feet, then they will have a better visibility. Now they don't because your dock is going to be further out. So if you give a little, they gave already whatever they gave, 11 feet, I don't know, to go to 12, you come down from 20 to 12, maybe this can be resolved, rather than go through the process.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
just-
you got to see their point too.
I do, yeah. And I've been, trying
It's a
to,
normal number here. It's not, if it was 75 feet, I can see they had no point to make. At the same time, you don't have the 75 feet, so come to an agreement.
Okay, do you have anything else to add, sir?
no.
All right, so we're going to go for a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Do we have a second? The motion fails for not having a second. Do we have another motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
No,
Ms. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Urbowski.
Yes. I guess guess that's it. You've got your variance.
Of just the length.
2 years to get a building permit, right? Isn't that what?
Pardon?
So he's at 2 years to get a building permit?
Yes, 2 years. Okay, so now we go on. Well, this has been deferred, so application number 21-86, variance to reduce the wetland setback, has been deferred, does not have a date. So then we move on to approval of minutes. May 26, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a second? Roll call.
Ms. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Ms. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Urbansky.
Yes. Staff comments.
I do have a staff comment.
Please.
We just wanted to make you aware that in October, the original meeting date that we had, it was on October 27th. We had to move that for a conflict with another meeting, so your October meeting will be on the 20th. You'll obviously get your packet a week or so before, and you'll be aware, but we just want to make you aware that that date is a week earlier.
But we still have September?
We've got a September meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good to know. Board comments.
I think we're good.
Anything? I guess I have a question regarding this wetland setback. Do we know when we're going to hear that?
The deferred case? So that one, actually, we were talking with the applicant. They might be going through a different process altogether that would involve them going through basically a plan development, which would take away the variances. So they're trying to work through that, determine what they want to do. So it's just deferred until they decide to move forward with that. If they do go the plan development route, they'll still have public hearings, but with Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
So we'll re-advertise for that one if it does come back to the meeting,
Gotcha.
or come back to the board, sorry.
So there's no timeline for them?
No.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And we, of course, wish Mr. Eisner well.
Yes.
And we are adjourned 7:46.
You said 27th, it would be on the 20th.
PCL?
Yes, it will be on the 20th, sorry.